You are now tuned into the 2-Minute Warning, a live stream community conversation pertaining to social and political issues and how we can collectively resolve them. Powered by the Westside Gazette.
Hi, and welcome to the 2-Minute Warning. The 2-Minute Warning is brought to you by... I'm hearing some static. The 2-Minute Warning is brought to you by the Westside Gazette newspaper, Broward County's oldest African-American family-owned newspaper. And joining me tonight is the publisher of the Westside Gazette, my good friend, Mr. Bobby Henry, and our favorite sidekick, our brother, Mr. David Wright. How are you brothers doing tonight?
You know, Perry, as always, I hope to say that I am terrific and getting better. Now, are you still hearing static, or is that because you cross country?
No, the static stopped all of a sudden, but I was
okay. Good. Well, we good. We're good to go.
We good.
All right.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Well, obviously, you know, I'm outstanding tonight. This show tonight is really gonna, this week and next week, we're really surprised that what we're gonna show our guests tonight. So I'm excited about tonight's show.
Absolutely.
Great. So, man, what's been going on? Catch me up on this coast to coast. I don't want to hear it on the internet. I want to hear it, as they say, from the horse's mouth. Or should I say you newly developed African American skill having Floridians?
Hey man, don't start that. We our enslaved ancestors, they were enslaved. They wasn't given no on the job training for some skills to be used. Well, I don't know what that man talking about, man. What is he talking about?
Boy, ain't that some who?
What is he talking? Perry? What is Ron DeSantis talking about?
The crazy?
Yeah, the crazy. According to his thought or his point of preference is no, the enslaved people they were getting on the job training
and loving it.
Come on, man.
But they came here and they loved it and stayed anyway.
Come on, man. Lord, y'all, people. I'm telling you, if you can't find anything else to vote about, we need to vote about the correct point of view and perspective from our history. This man and his sycophants are absolutely crazy. Yeah, so let's tackle that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That as is always the case with this Republican Party, we know that what they started in Florida will soon find its way in some of these other states. Texas.
Okay, let's talk about your home state.
Arizona state.
But let's talk about your home state. The audacity to have women in court, and this sister had to give birth to a what was the term they used? The fetus wasn't alive. I'll just say that. And right. She was so caught up emotionally that she actually regurgitated while on the witness stand. It was so horrific and so hard for her to recount her experiences while giving birth to a non-living entity, and she had to do it based upon the law. What kind of myths are we experiencing?
Yeah, and it's growing. I was listening to a show earlier today where they're saying that doctors are having to spend more time understanding the legal ramifications of their actions and all of the legal expertise surrounding their profession, that the care of medical health has gone down because they're refusing to either give give treatment or care or move to other places. And so it's causing quite a rippling effect, and we're getting hurt regardless.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we always suffer, and it's infectious right now. It's cancerous. It's starting to spread throughout the United States, and it's a shame when the
Look like we may have lost them. But anyway, while we're waiting on Bobby and David to get back, I do want to encourage our audience, please subscribe. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please click on the subscribe button, as well as on Facebook, because that will allow us to better gauge our audience and better understand who's there. And we all know that the analytics of social media will begin to help, and so that will allow us to do some better things. So please hit that subscribe button, as well as David was saying earlier tonight. We have a great show for you tonight. July is Black Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are really looking forward to dedicating these last remaining weeks of July to this subject. This subject that has now pretty much gripped every family. I don't know of any family that has not in some way had to deal with mental health issues, either from a family member, a friend, someone in the community. And as I said, we are seeing it grow among our seniors. We're seeing it in dementia and Alzheimer's, but even among some of our youth, and the amount of depression and suicides among our teens. These are mental health crisis times, and so we do want to just not gloss over this, but we do want to have a real meaningful discussion around this. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Yeah. I was trying to tell everybody, AI ain't all what it cracked up to be. We still need that human influence. That AI stuff ain't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
blame it on the AI. Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Perry. Perry, your last comment was speaking to tonight's show and the seriousness of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And I was saying that, and I don't know if you guys really want to go right into that. We did have another issue that really concerns me, and I know it's a concern to every homeowner in the state of Florida, and that is the growing crisis that's happening as more and more private insurers are leaving the state, especially around homeowners insurance specifically.
Yeah, that in itself is a scary conversation. When you have and let's say those who can afford homeowners insurance or property insurance, when the discussion around the dinner table is, hold up, this stuff is getting out of hand. When you want to hedge a bet to not have insurance or to have insurance based upon the cost, that is of a serious concern, especially here in the state of Florida, where hurricanes and thunderstorms and other God working things happen. But when you have to have that conversation, you got farmers insurance gone. Citizens is one of the highest in the world, so our insurance, home insurance has doubled, in some cases almost tripled, and it is of concern. So
yeah.
And when we talk about this, we have to kind of look at the reasons why these numbers are driving up so high in the state of Florida. And it's the past storms and all of these lawsuits against the insurance company that has driven them out of the state and caused the price of insurance, homeowners insurance, to rise. So we've been poor about legislating the amount of lawsuits. Florida constitutes 79% of these litigations across the country, and that's extremely high. That's absorbently high for this one state to have that many lawsuits against claims against homeowners insurance companies. So there's a total offset there that is creating this problem, and our legislation just hasn't addressed it from a legal standpoint on who has the right to sue in certain cases with these claims. So it's a deeper dive than that, and it's obviously going to run insurance companies out of the state if they're in fear of being sued every time.
Okay, now Perry. Okay,
Mhm.
so when the insurance companies run out of the state of Florida, what happens then? Does the state take over, and what happens? How does that work?
Yeah, well, in the case of Florida, Florida does have a state-funded insurance program. The initial intent of that program was really to be a last-ditch effort for homeowners. It was not to be a first choice for homeowners. In fact, it was really structured in such a way as to discourage homeowners from seeking help from the state. But because, as David said, because of the amount of suits, and especially after this, the last hurricane that came through Florida last year, from what I've heard, the amount of funds to help restore that area in Florida has outpaced the cost of Katrina.
That's that Fort Myers area.
Yeah, and so when you
that rich, highly populated white area of Florida. Oh, okay.
yeah, Sanibel Island, those areas,
all of that over there on that west coast.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We can really go on and on about this, but we got another serious.
Yeah. But before we go on, let's just say we are talking about this more than the governor is talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
While the governor is steadily pushing efforts to pull back on the intellectual prowess of our youth, is now putting up a firewall such that some of our most noted intellectuals are not even thinking about gracing the campuses of a Florida university or college. While he's on that fight, the fight that crosses age, race, religion, politics, everybody's getting screwed, and he doesn't have a damn thing to say about it, and he hasn't talked about it at all.
Okay. Perry, now we said before that it's like if you were hanging out on the street corners and you saw the hustlers bring up a old milk crate and a board and some shells and a pea, and they're on the corner moving this pea. Watch the pea, watch the pea. Why, there's something going on over here. DeSantis is one of those pea playing. That's a tongue twister. One of those pea playing pimps, with our livelihood. And like you said, he doesn't care. He's not speaking towards that. He's diverting to some other tactic.
Yeah.
He's not saying it. His cabinet's not saying it. That super majority of the GOP they got in Tallahassee, they're sidestepping us when it comes to something that every homeowner in Florida is concerned about.
And not just every homeowner, every renter, because as this is affecting every homeowner who has rental property, that cost is being passed down. As I've learned, the national average for homeowners insurance is about $1,700.
And what it is here in the state of Florida?
$6,000 and growing.
Thank you. And growing.
And growing.
Mm-hmm.
$6,000.
But yet and still, we can allow this dictator, this what's that word I'm trying to say? Another form of fascism, dioptic. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, yeah. This form of government, and we as citizens, we allow this to happen, and it's killing us. So, what are we going to do?
That is the question. Yeah.
Vote like your life depended on it, because it does.
It does. And just to close this out, it almost seems strategic to try to really run marginal folks out of the state. I mean, when you look at it, he's been recruiting and selling to people to move to Florida, and I'm certain it's a certain class that he's welcoming into the state. So just be mindful of that and vote.
Yeah. There is, like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. If we were to go back and flip through the pages of history and look at Adolf Hitler and how he reigned and what he did as it relates to businesses, trying to create that free enterprise zone for him and those businesses, but yet and still he would get free labor. He closed down education. You couldn't do this. There's nothing new under the sun. We just need to pay attention. We just need to pay attention. Okay.
As Marvin used to say, makes me want to throw up my hands and holler.
Holler. Yeah.
Well, we got something to holler about tonight, my brother. Go ahead.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue. Don't know if Marvin was saying it was his psychosis or just his response to what he was seeing. But his words were so revealing in that moment, because I think as we all look at this, it makes us want to holler, throw up our hands.
Yes,
and for some of us, that holler and that response is an ongoing struggle, not just for them, but for the families around them. And so, as we began to tackle this timely and well-needed subject tonight, I think Marvin's words encompasses us all. And how do we deal with this issue that strikes our loved ones, our community, around mental health and all of its dynamics, not just dealing with the person, but with the outcome? We have a legal system now that shoots first and really don't ask questions later. They just shoot first. And we have a judicial system that in cases of many people of color are throwing mental issues to the side in some of their cases. And so David, I'm gonna throw it to you, man. Lead us into this and introduce our guests.
Well, we have three exciting guests tonight, and I want to start with our dear sister Anna Henry. I want to bring her on and let her share some information. I know she's I think in Philadelphia right now, so we're on another northeast coast. But Sister Henry, if you can unmute your mic, and if our producer can bring her on. How are you this evening?
I am well. I'm grateful to be here. As we've actually seen each other face to face, Mr. Perry and Dr. Henry, but definitely glad to be here. And I look forward to the dialogue tonight.
Sister Anna, you want to give us just a little bit about yourself and where you are and what's going on there as well?
Last time that me and Mr. Perry and Dr. Henry spoke, it was in regards to a situation that I've been battling for almost 2 years with my son being incarcerated. And my son has been challenged with his mental health since he was somewhat like a toddler. We know that they are not actually able to diagnose children with autism spectrum or any mental health diagnosis until they're at least the age of 5. And so I was invited to the table to actually discuss with the community the concerns that we have with mental health in the juvenile justice system and how we are going to try and find a strategy to better help the community and the parents and people who suffer with mental health.
Okay.
Awesome.
And July is, and I kind of wrestled with this name of the month. July is Minority Mental Health Month, and I said, "Dog, we only get a month to deal with something so serious," but that's just a sidebar. And Anna, I appreciate the title that you're giving me, but I must say that I am not a doctor, and I don't want anybody in the audience to think that.
Awesome.
You know, and I respect you to the utmost, and that carries a heck of a title. And you're right, the last time we were engaged in conversation, there was a serious issue, and trying to shine a light on the situation surrounding young Henry, and what he was going through and what he had been going through for a long time. It seems as if it was his entire life. So this has been a prevalent issue that we're dealing with in terms of Henry's mental health, and not only that, when one of us are affected, we all are affected, and that has I know it has caused you a lot of pain, but I want to commend you for not giving up. You know, you've been in this fight. I know for at least, how old is Henry now? 15.
He's actually 17 now.
17 now?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So
He
know
was 15 when he actually became incarcerated. He had just turned 15 in December 2021.
Okay. Wow. So I know you've been in this fight for a mighty long time. You want to bring the other guests on?
Well, I'm going to go to our next guest, who is no stranger to the 2-minute warning. If I say the name, y'all gonna know who she is. Our dear Sister Mona Lisa Weber. How are you this evening?
We need the audience on for that.
It's been a while.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, we're well.
I can see the numbers just shoot up when she comes on screen.
Y'all need to stop hyping me up like that, man. Stop hyping me up.
Well, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mona Lisa Weber. I'm a community advocate in South Florida. So much to say, but I'm thankful to be here this evening to have a conversation about what's happening with young Henry Lewis, as we have gathered together and have done some stuff and advocated and just trying to figure out strategies. But for me, the most important thing is to bring awareness to the community, to let them know that they're not alone, that this is happening rapidly, and we need to start like harnessing and focusing on being bigger than the stigma, right? Being bigger than the shame. I recently posted something on social media where I said, you know, during the dating process, we need to be asking questions about, have you been like to therapy, right? Mental health. Have you done therapy, and how was it for you? And, you know, there's people that were like, well, no, don't ever ask me that. Like, how can we get through these issues and feel comfortable about talking about mental health? We see it, but we don't do anything about it. So I want to really bring awareness to this situation, because it's happening to a lot of people, but we all feel isolated, and then there's a lot of fear involved. So hopefully we can get into the deep conversation on how can we move forward, not only for Henry, but just as a whole collectively, to kind of bring awareness and let the criminal justice system know, at least here in Broward County, that this has to be talked about more, and it has to be considered in sentencing, in you know, pre-sentence investigations. It has to be considered. It has to be brought to the table, because it's a serious issue and it's increasing rapidly.
You know, with that point being made, Mona Lisa, Miss Weber, Broward County, Palm Beach County, Miami, they are no strangers to adjudicating youth over to adult
Correct.
prison system. looking past the mental capacity. So there have been a history of that. So I want us to get to. I want people to feel the passion of what this is causing. And then I do know on next week's show we have some professional therapists that will be coming on to further this conversation along. But we want people to actually feel what it's like to know a Henry Lewis or to know a Cruz or a Lionel Tate.
Yes.
To know these individuals. So we want to poke this bear and get this conversation started. Yeah. Who's the other person?
And last but not least, we're going to bring on our third guest for tonight, a young lady by the name of Miss Kia Smith. Kia, if you would unmute yourself and come on, please.
Hi,
Good
everybody.
evening.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay. How's everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Good. We're so honored to have you here. I know you told us before you're a little shy, but I know with this crew we got right here tonight, we're going to get this conversation going. And I just ask that you just go on and jump in whenever you feel like it. But before we get started, tell us a little more about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm not an expertise by traditional standards. I wouldn't say I have degrees or certificates. However, life circumstances sometimes make you qualified.
Amen.
right.
I'm no stranger to
right.
the mental health system. I've seen it up close and personal. And to kind of piggyback off what Mr. Henry said, a big problem with our kids getting the proper mental health care is how they're viewed. And a big portion of that has to do with a white orchestrated media. Sorry if I'm being offensive, because most images that they get of our children are not up close and personal. And the professionals that they send in, they don't typically associate with people in our communities. So when they come in, they're already looking at our children as a criminal element. So it's hard to see someone in a mental health light when you already have a preconceived notion that they're a criminal element. And this just doesn't stop there. It goes with, attorneys and so forth who has to represent our children. By the time they get to our kids, they already looking at like they're just a criminal. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not mentally ill. They're just a criminal. And sometimes that's the stigma in our community as well, because you hear the comments such as, well, she playing crazy, but she ain't crazy. A lot of times we don't accept mental illness. And I guess I'll contribute that to lack of education. A lot of times we just don't know. We don't recognize it. There is no one in our community to teach us about these symptoms, or that we even need to fight it. It's so many branches to this tree. It would take maybe weeks to, dissect it all, but that's a big part of the issue. And then when you do send experts in, again, they already have this preconceived notion. So it's like we can't be mentally ill. And that's a big part of the problem.
Kia, if I could, I know we were engaged in a text change, and you and Anna met. And Anna, you want to tell us how that meeting, how did this come about? This point where we are now.
Recently, I made a post because my son Henry had a court date coming up, and I made a post in regards to the effort of just letting myself and many other people who are concerned about Henry's circumstance know that I'm not going to give up without a fight for my son. And so in the process, the actual post made at least probably between 100 to 200, give or take, or 160 views and comments in between. And so Miss Kaya was one of the people who actually reached out to me through the post, and she was like, if there's anyone who actually knows this young lady, please connect her with me so I can try and see what I can do to help. And so she reached out and I reached out immediately when I seen the post, because it has been a while. It's been almost 2 years since Henry has been sitting in that facility, and even though he has we've talked to him, we've had video chats, and we've had visits, and they are opening up a new program within BSO to let the family, actually, if the children earn their rights to a family visit, they are opening up a program where the family can come in and do a face-to-face and actually be able to hug and kind of like physically nurture that one-on-one social with their children. And I think that's about one of the best ideas that they have set up thus far. But it shouldn't take certain things to try to create that continuous loving atmosphere between the child and the parent, because they even made it where now you can't actually write letters on a regular leaflet sheet of paper. You have to send it on a 5x5 index card or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so it's just been really complicated, but that's how she basically got connected to me, through the post.
Okay, Mona Lisa, coming from your profession, and if can you bring us up to date as it pertains to Henry, and just get our listeners caught up, as quick as we can. Then we're gonna jump over to Kia for a moment.
Okay, so really quick, I've known Anna for a long time. Her son had actually come to one of our workshops with Baba Shaba. And I've known Henry, known her, it's been years, right? 2015, maybe 2016. So she contacted me in concerns of Henry, because Henry was arrested for a particular crime. So when we began to analyze, okay, so for everyone, I'm a former probation officer. I worked in Broward County, Florida. I was a field probation officer and an in-court senior probation officer. I'm not a lawyer. I don't give any legal advice. However, I'm able to look at the system, right, from the outside and also from the inside, because I understand how it works. So when Anna contacted me, basically she had given me the facts of the case. So young Henry Lewis, right, has been adjudicated incompetent, and he was found incompetent by four times in Broward County, Florida. And then he was adjudicated incompetent by a judge in 2020, right? So given these circumstances and the lengthy history of his mental health, we're talking about since he was a toddler, he went to pretty much almost every program. Miss Henry was asking for help throughout the years. The school system failed him. The facilities failed him, right? She's going out asking for help. She went to the previous state attorney. She went to the NAACP. She's just really trying to be proactive on how can my son be helped, because she understood what she was dealing with. So in 2020, Henry was incarcerated, and his mother, Miss Henry, asked the courts, can my son be put on some form of ankle monitor, because he may be a threat to himself and to others. And I would feel more comfortable if he would have an ankle monitor. Everyone ignored her. Okay. She was ignored, and a program was supposed to come pick up Henry. They released Henry. The program never came to pick him up. And a couple of months later, after he was released without any form of supervision, there was a crime that was committed. Now, we are not deviating from the crime that was committed. We want to focus on the fact that the state disregarded what the mother had said. And then also we want to bring awareness to the severe mental health issues that is occurring in our communities, and how the state needs to, and particularly in this case, take his mental health into account, because there was proactive measures done by his mother, right? This is not a mom that was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. She was at every court hearing. I mean, the lady has been fully involved in her son's life, and has gone through so much, even losing jobs, being just so many things that people cannot imagine. all of his life. And when asked for help in a proactive and preventative way, the case is very delicate, but we want to bring awareness to the mental health about it, the mental health issues that not only Henry has, but other children have, and even in our own communities are being ignored. So the community is also part of the problem, right? So we want to bring awareness and let people know, like, this can happen to any one of you or your children.
Okay.
So now the adjudication, did you want to finish that, or did you finish that as to where we are now with it?
Yeah.
So I would want his mom to kind of go into that, because now I guess he's found competent. So the state ended up hiring other lawyers. So this is one thing I want to point out that I feel is very important in the process that we found out. All of our children are being evaluated by old white men, right? And then all of our children are being housed somewhere in the boondocks of Tallahassee to be determined whether they're competent or incompetent. So the whole concept of now him being, and Anna, please correct me, he's competent now after being adjudicated incompetent. But we also have to understand that there's a victim in the case, and the victim has a whole entire family. So it's a very delicate situation, because the victim's family is pushing, right? And then we're also trying to push. So, like, can we come to some form of halfway point to resolve this issue?
That's a good point. Before you chime in, Anna, Kia, okay, the fact that you have seen it, as you said, up close and personal, what is your take on Henry Lewis's situation, and perhaps Boo Boo Head and Shamika and all them that are caught up in this web of this dilemma?
What makes Henry's situation so much different is the extensive history of mental health. Okay. Well, first, scientifically, we know children's brain doesn't develop fully until you're approximately around 25. So that's the first thing. The second thing is he has an intellectual disability as well as a mental illness, not to mention some of the medications that he was taking causes violent outbursts. They have several different diagnoses for him, so we don't even know if he's being treated for the proper, for the proper, I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry.
For the proper symptom. Yeah,
you're doing good, kid.
Has the proper diagnosis, and that's a big issue. But see, what's wrong is, like, okay, with Broward County's mental health court, they have this standardized testing for competency. It's basically like, what does the judge do? What does the prosecutor do? These are people that are probably spending 20 minutes with these people that they're evaluating. They're not even considering the mental health history. And that's what's wrong. So basically, if you're able to tell them what's going on in court, they feel like, well, this person can stand trial. And that's not always so. In particular, like with Henry, for instance. Notice how Mona Lisa said he had those restoration classes prior to the new competent, saying that he's competent. But the thing, what if he's parroting? What if he's just repeating what he's learned in these competency restoration classes, but doesn't actually grasp the gravitude of the situation? This is a big problem. And another thing that she said, she is absolutely correct. The psychologists that come in to test these children are white. They are. And that's a big issue. That's what I was saying earlier. They don't know us personally. They don't have any interactions with us outside of at work or, in common passing. So when Fox News gives you all your information about a particular people, you're already going in thinking you're dealing with a criminal. And this is how our kids get misdiagnosed in Broward County's mental health system. It's overcrowded, underfunded. And like she said, Henry should have never been left on the streets. once his mom said that he was a danger to himself and others. This is a big issue, and it has been long overdue, need to be addressed. I don't think he should have been waived over in the first place. He was 14 years old, literally.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Now, Anna, Miss Smith has given us a little bit more. Now, could you validate what Miss Smith has said in reference to Henry and his history, if you will, his mental health history?
So Henry started going to grade school and the 3 and 4 year old program. And as time went on, we noticed that a lot of things was changing as he was progressing in the 3 and 4 year old program. But because they don't diagnose until 5 years old, we couldn't actually pinpoint what the issue was. So gradually, as time progressed, he was at Bennett. And when he went to Bennett, that's when we was able to actually that year get him assessed and try and see what it was that we was dealing with, so we can know how to actually be able to protect him and those around him.
What's Bennett? What is Bennett?
Bennett Elementary.
Okay.
And at that point, that's when we made the decision to actually assess him. And once he was assessed, he actually transitioned over to Smith Community Mental Health. Mm-hmm. And he was at Smith Community Mental Health for a while until he actually completed the program there. And over time, he went to Broward Estates Elementary. And his first school was Northside Elementary. That was when he first started school. And then when he went over from Bennett to Broward Estates, his brother was at Broward Estates. So that's why I transitioned him over to Broward Estates. I tried putting him also at a charter school with his brother and his sister, but because of his mental health, he wasn't actually able to focus and mainstream in the environment that he was in. So that's when I made the decision to actually, my daughter had went off to middle school. So that's when I transitioned both of my kids over to, that's when I transitioned both of my boys over to Broward Estates. And so when I transitioned them over to Broward Estates, let's just say that Henry went to a numerous amounts of schools. And over time, during the assessments and everything, all of them came back that Henry had a issue with his intellectual delays and his IQ. And so recently, even as he's incarcerated, he's still continuing on getting his education. And so they wanted to see if they could actually mainstream him or try to get him back to a regular high school diploma. So what they noticed was that once they assessed him, they found that Henry still suffers with his intellectual delays and he still has a low IQ. And so at this point, I'm furious because I'm like, this is the same concept that the courts was utilizing to actually, I'm gonna say, misdiagnose my son as to saying that he's competent because he can't even spell the words that they're actually expressing to him. And it's kind of like, I feel as though they're not considering what it is that I told them in the beginning of the court hearing. From the first time that I actually spoke to the public defender, I explained to her, listen, my son is a parrot. He will mimic everything that you say. And there are witnesses that Henry has a tendency to try to fit in certain environments, as to if he's around a culture of the Jamaican heritage, if he's around the culture of the Haitian, trying to actually portray their language. Tries to parrot certain so that he can fit in.
Okay, Anna, your microphone is coming in and out. We lost you a couple of times, but we got you. We got the gist of what you were saying. Wow, there's so many things I want to ask, but I'll let other folk join in.
Well,
there we go.
yeah. I know we're talking about mental health, but I've won't say had the privilege, but had the honor of really meeting Anna through Mona Lisa and being associated with this. Anna, can you just really don't want to just spill out, but give us an idea of what sort of cocktails of treatments Henry has gone through, and also what we have found out about many of these treatments as it relates. I mean, starting from a very young age, Henry started getting a cocktail of very strong medication for a 5-year-old kid. And so, Anna, can you just explain that? Because I know there are a lot of parents who, for the sake of they go into the schools and they're already feeling intimidated, and so the schools are saying their kids or the child is performing a certain way. The mother doesn't know how to confront that issue or really deal with the school in an effective way. And as is the case, and we know it really as a really one of the outcomes of the crack epidemic, that when schools began to see young kids that were really ADD or had some sort of what they prescribed to be crack babies, their mode of dealing with the symptom was really adding more medication and not dealing with the problems, not with the mother, not with the child, but continued medication. And we know doctors were getting a real big kickback on medications and the amount of prescriptions. So, Anna, can you just please, just sort of give the audience an understanding of what he has gone through?
So yes, definitely. When Henry left Bennett Elementary, Henry transitioned over to Smith, and when he was transitioned over to Smith, because matter of fact, I think I switched him over to the charter school because it was a common imbalance with the school system, because the charter school couldn't actually assess Henry because they didn't have the measure of staff that was needed to do the IEP. And so that's why I had to switch.
Explain what that is.
State.
Explain
so
what the IEP.
The IEP is somewhat like it's a state assessment where basically
individual educational plan.
So they basically identified certain criteria of trait and behavior throughout the time that they have been inside of the school system, and see exactly as they get the assessment done by the ESE specialist, they basically see what's missing, what needs to be there, and what it is that they can do to kind of find a resolution for the situation to meet the full needs of the child's education. And they do the assessment either every year or every 6 months. They reevaluate it.
Okay. The drugs that Perry was talking about, Miss Smith, you said something to the effect of the use of drugs. Give us a little bit more insight on that.
So you ever see where some labels say may cause suicide thoughts? This occurs with these medications. Anna, what was the name of that medication? Was it Valium?
So Henry was on 3 different medications. Henry was on Vyvanse was one of the
That's the
medications.
medication.
He was on Adderall. He was on Abilify. At one point, he was on 4 different medications. He was taking 1.5 of one medication and another pill to go to school in the morning, and then he would take 2 tablets probably when he come home in the evening to help him to stay elevated throughout the evening time for him before he go to bed.
And Kia, what you started to comment on the side effects or
The medication, Vyvanse, what she mentioned, it causes violent outbursts. Not only that, some studies has found it's particularly pronounced in males. Those are one of the medications that Henry was taking. Not to mention, when they found him, they had that with a combination of street drugs. So I can't imagine what state of mind he was at, with all of that. He's a teenager, number one, so that's hormones in itself. Plus, he was taking psychotropic medications with those type of side effects and street drugs.
And he was on, like I said, he was on 2 other medications, and I'm not sure me and Kia had talked about it, and I don't know if it was either Vyvanse or guanfacine that was causing him to have hallucinations. And it kind of troubles me when I think back to the days prior to my son being incarcerated and prior to the situation being as extreme as it had became in that time, that Henry had came to me and he told me, he said, "Mom, I'm starting to see things." And I'm like, "Son, listen, you got to come home." I tried to get him and constantly coaching him to come home. And it even got to the point where I can say that the community was hiding my son from me, because I would actually be up in the midnight hours, all times of night, trying to find my son.
Okay. I see one of our viewers, Mr. Bernard Fisher. Bernard says, okay, the court and the penal systems administering to our children and families has been flawed and devoid of addressing our children and community needs. Mona Lisa, what's your comments to Mr. Fisher's point here?
Lord. How you doing, Mr. Fisher? He's absolutely correct. My thing is I'm solution oriented, and this is a community problem, right? I know that once our youth are arrested and they're in the system, it's almost a little bit, I'm not going to say it's too late, because we can advocate and we can challenge and we can, work on getting better outcomes. But the truth of the matter is that we have to start from the community and the ground, because, for example, for Miss Henry to go through all this, where were the men in the community to help support what she was going through with a young Black man? Right? Like, where are the churches in the community to help support this system? Right? The school systems, everybody's worried about their jobs, so they don't care about our children that way. They care about their paychecks. Right? So it's when you look at every situation community based, everyone's on survival mode to the point where we can't blame them for the decisions that they make, but at some point we're going to have to level up and sacrifice for the future of our children. Because one thing I'll say, I was listening to a panel where here in Broward County, where Harold Pryor was on our state attorney Harold Pryor was on the panel, and he said, once your child enters the system, it's too late. Right? I actually hit the ground and went to a whole bunch of nonprofit organizations to kind of see, like, do you accept volunteers with criminal histories? Can a youth volunteer with a criminal history? All these systems are tied together. If you have a criminal history, you can't volunteer. If the youth is in trouble, they can't be part of this. If the youth is this, the only time a youth can be part of any program is if they've already entered the system. So where are the mental health programs? Where are the activities prior to our children getting in trouble? You know what I mean? At first I was the system, which I get it. But what about before the system? What about all the preventative methods that Miss Henry went to? What about her cry for help? Like, what the F? Like, it's exhausting, because at the end of the day, our children are actually going into these systems every single day. So what, as a community, how do we get together and strategize? What church in Broward County is willing to open up a mental health wellness center within the church? Right? What church? Like, I always talk about the church, because the church is the brick and mortar that we can enter and build something and create something that we want to see. We can't go to the mall and do it, right? We can't go to the school system and do it, because they're tied to the systems. We got to go to the churches and a brick and mortar, a community center. Where? How do we do this? Because our children are really getting caught up in these systems, and y'all already see, man, these kids taking over.
Miss Weber, another one of our viewers, Miss Sandra Shafria, she says, keep advocating. And I wish Sandra would elaborate on that. She needs to be on the show. Sandra is an attorney, and she is an outspoken advocate. So I wish she could elaborate more. So we'll have her back on the show. But you're absolutely right. Kia, now, you've been in the trenches as well, right? And so we're getting caught up in the hour here. We're gonna come back next week and continue this. Next week we'll have a therapist, Miss Katrina Kennedy. She will be one of our guests next week. She's a therapist. But Katrina, I'm sorry, Kia, what do you see as some hope for us? I know, Mona Lisa, you mentioned the churches.
Well, you have to do that groundwork. I'm a firm believer in, if the church is not going to do it, I'm not going to keep asking them to do it. If there's a need for something and you can't get nobody else to do it, you get up and do it. I've started to do a lot of groundwork, because a good portion of it is uneducation in the Black community. That's just that. They don't know how, okay, this child being mentally ill, how it affects their household. They just feel like, well, it ain't my kids, but it is your kids. Because if this child is in mental crisis, that puts your child in danger too. And it's, to the Black community. They don't really follow a lot of this stuff. Like, Mona Lisa is very well spoken, but the people who really need to hear it are probably never going to come in contact with her. It's just we have to do some old-fashioned groundwork and get back into the community and make them understand why they have to be involved. And then we have to learn how to practice nepotism, and that's taking care of each other. Because as you can see, nobody's coming to rescue us. We have to learn how to be each other's keepers. It's that. I mean, if nobody's coming, you have to come up with other solutions or continue to suffer the problem. We have to do that groundwork, and we have to get the community involved. And that's finding people that can reach those that we can't reach, that can speak the languages, to the younger people that we can't speak. Mm-hmm. And she is right. I agree with that. The churches need to do more too, because they collect a lot of money off of our communities, and they need to stand up and do more. We shouldn't have to go beg anybody for a facility when the church is raking in billions of dollars a year.
Okay.
Miss Kia, let me just say something real quick. I'm on the ground. I'm in the trenches. I just speak like this because I'm having respect for Mr. Henry. All the way in.
Not too bad.
Did I tell you? Like, I've had to like really control my, because I'm trying to, I'm respectful to the West Side Gazette. But let me tell you, because I'm on the ground all day, every day in the courtroom, like they know. But, I'm trying not to even cuss, girl. You hear me? I'm trying not to even cuss because they already know, boy. But I'm going to keep it cool.
Okay.
But I mean, okay, like for instance, the people that I come in contact with, I mean, and I know you from, but it's like it's the disconnect is so
real.
Yeah.
Please say, okay, Miss Kia, do me a favor. Say it some more. Because this what I be telling our elders. This what I be telling the communities. This what I be telling, the bourgeoisies.
Mm-hmm. You see how everybody, I got to for the president, but they don't realize how important local elections are. That's just, right. Local elections is actually more important, but our community don't know that. This is a big problem. We need more people like me, Mona Lisa, who speak that urban talk, that know how to reach the people to make them understand why they need to be included in this fight. Mm-hmm. It's just the disconnect is the biggest problem. Okay. That is the big problem. A lot just don't know.
Okay, y'all hold that point. I'm trying to maintain my sense of dignity as well. I don't let the smooth taste fool you now. So we're in this together. I do want to comment on. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, we do have a comment from one of our viewers, Sophie Wright. If we can just go ahead and post her comment, someone that works in the school system. It says, I've been an educator working in the ESE students in Broward County for about 10 years. I agree that men and ministries are missing as leaders in the schools, and as oftentimes schools are more focused on compliance with the state and the district mandates laws rather than the parents and the students' needs.
Okay. Now bring up another comment. I see Brother Fisher has come back. Brother Fisher got another comment. And Brother Fisher says, what about the national organizations, the fraternities, the sororities, the Masons, the Eastern Stars, etc.? What should they do? Now,
I believe that's that bourgeoisie crowd that Mona Lisa was referring to.
Ooh. I mean, you hit me in the gut. You busted.
No, I mean, and let's not. And I know that's brush. That's painting with a wide brush. But as they say, I mean, the strong have to bear the infirmities of the weak, and we must understand that these are some of our most storied organizations. I'm not a frat. Some of my best friends are frat, so I have nothing against the frat. I think the frat has much worth. The Masons, Eastern Stars, I run the gamut. But who they were and what they are, we must come to grips with that. And I know that sometimes when you're closer to something, you have much love and respect for it. But I think, as they're saying, in terms of our elders, of these groups that have had long standing in our community, the fact that we have parts of our communities who have this perspective about them should not be easily dismissed. I think that adds to the psychosis. It adds to this dilemma, because if I'm in need, as they say in life, we all want to congregate either with people who we want to be like or who strive. So when I'm down and out and I'm striving to get with someone who's better and who seems to have it all going for themselves, 100 black men, however you want to name it, and we're just naming it. I'm not pointing the finger at any one organization, but when you begin to look at the fact that we have a significant amount of our community that either one doesn't know them or have some sort of negative or I won't say negative, but it's surely not a positive view of them, our response shouldn't be to dismiss the messenger. It should be really to take that inward look. And I think that, again, that this is where our community now has to be, is taking that inward look on this issue as well as as a lot of issues. Because I think as we're talking about this mental health, we're talking about, and forgive me, I don't want to be crude, but we're talking about the real mental health. We're not talking about our mental health, because we all share some psychosis
Mm-hmm.
and some mental health. Bobby, you know, I say all the time, we are the walking wounded.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we want to put our dilemmas to the side and have someone, as to say, to look down on, I think this is one of the rallying cries of our community, because again, we're not used to seeing a community in distress like this. We're used to distress, but not this one.
Okay.
And Brother Perry, if I may, I tend to agree with a lot of what you're saying, especially when it comes to certain organizations. It shouldn't always be about recruiting, but at some point we have to be our brother's keepers. And there has to be programs designed for those that are suffering, that are less fortunate. And these are this is the day and age right now where we need to continue to have this type of conversation, so that we can meet the full needs of the community, and not just a chosen few.
Okay. And to our guests and our viewers, we're getting past the hour, and so we got to bring it to a close. But to a close, but not to an end. This is a conversation that we have to continue. So if we can go around, and please, ladies and gentlemen, if we could close, before we close, I want to bring up these two comments. I want to say to Miss Janet Taylor. Janet was the first Black commissioner over in Clewiston, Florida. And if you know anything about Florida and Clewiston and Belglade, you know how difficult it is in that part of the state. And Miss Taylor says, local is where the rubber meets the road. And she is an expert at that. She worked in the sugarcane fields to get people to register to vote. She worked alongside with Congressman Al.C. Hastings, so she is a warrior. So when she comments, it begs us to pay attention. And then we have another educator, former educator, Mr. Noonie Robertson. And Noonie says, the only way to change the system is to vote. Too much apathy in our community. These programs are important, but decisions are made in Tallahassee by politicians, opposed to minority advancements in this country. There is an all-out assault against us to maintain power, political control, and influence at any cost. Now, I'm going to give you my editorializing when I say my comments. And Brother Nathaniel Mitchell says, when you talk about mental health, okay, we won't get a chance to read everybody, but he says, when you talk about mental health, talk about the educated mental handicap. Boy, you sound like Carter G. Woodson, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Okay, let's go around the table and in 1 minute, if you could. And Anna, we'll start with you, and then you, Miss Smith, and then you, Mona Lisa. 1 minute, please.
If I had anything to tell the people tonight, you can't look at people and decide whether or not mental health, a person is suffering from mental health or not. So my question to society today would be, what does mental health look like to you?
Ms. Smith?
My comment is, in closing, is you have to be your brother's keeper. Take care of each other's children like they're your own. That's just that. Until we start practicing nepotism, we're going to keep running into these problems.
Okay. Sister Weber?
All right, I'm going to try to make it real quick, but real quick, addressing what Mr. Perry said. I'm not too focused on these organizations. I'm more focused on classism. those that the classism is the issue, because those that live in better neighborhoods and make more money look down on people like me and Miss Anna and Miss Kia. You see what I'm saying? They don't want to be bothered with us because we too loud, right? Or we're risking something that, you know what I'm saying, that they don't work hard for, which I get it. But at the end of the day, like, that's my issue. Classism and the people that think that they better than us and turn a nose up on us because they done so-called made it. And that's just BS. I'll say this, like, we have to start looking within. We have to start looking at our neighbors and our blocks and start having these deep conversations. The mothers and the parents that are going through issues in the juvenile system, they all need to get together and start having conversations and collaborating with one another and becoming advocates for their own children. We have numbers, power with numbers. I know that people in the chat are talking about voting. I get all that, but at the end of the day, we have to educate ourselves and vote the right people in. I'm not just voting for just to vote no more. We have to start voting policies over party, policies over party, policies over party. Whether it's reps or dams, it don't matter at this point because we still in the same position. They're still slumming blight. So I don't want people, we need to vote, we need to vote. How do you hold people accountable? I've been asking that question for over 5 years. So like, y'all can't come to us with, you need to vote, we need to vote. No. Who are we voting for? Is this person going to do what they say they finna do? And are we actually going to hold them accountable? We tired of the talk. We tired of everybody telling us that we need to vote while we not voting. Like, we want to see results. So if you asking us to vote, like, are you going to be part of the fight? Are you going to be part of the, coming to the courthouse, doing this? Like, are you going to be part of the process, or you just telling us what to do? Like, we done with that. Like, it's a new day. It's 2023. We trying to get the streets to rise up, and we not doing the old traditional shit all y'all talking about. Those days are over. Like, we need new strategies and new ways, and we need the streets to start running for office. That's what we need, and that's all I'm going to say.
Who want to follow that up? Brother Wright?
Editorial,
Right?
you close us on out, my brother.
Okay. That Perry, you want to say something, and then I'll close us out?
Yeah. Wow. All I can say is ditto to that. Ditto.
Okay. All right. Very good. First of all, I want to thank our guests. This has been a very lively conversation. It's not the last time. Again, I say next week, Dr. Katrina Kennedy will be on to further the conversation. And if need be, we'll have some of y'all back. So please tune in. The other thing I want to say is, as we discuss what we should do, how we should do it, those who should be involved, I'm putting the hat on now of the chairman of the NNPA, and that's the black newspapers from around this country. I challenge each one of you, the panel, as well as our listeners, to write a letter to the editor, to your feelings about what and how we need to move forward. We need to use the voice that we have. Social media is fine, it's just a platform. But at any moment, this could be taken away from us. Let's use the voice that we have to put the narrative out that we want to have. And that narrative is, and I heard you say it, all of you said, we have to be our brothers and sisters keepers. And the way we do that is through loving one another, not necessarily liking one another, but loving one another. There comes a time when we have to put all of the BS, and that's being stupid, aside and look at what's the best for us all. Yeah, it may mean turning our thoughts away from situations that we have no control over and begin to control the ones that we do. It may mean that we look and speak to truth. We speak the truth to power, be it in the churches, to the ministers, to the organizations. Each one of us belong to some type of organization. And if that organization is not being true to the game, then we must call them out. For such a time as this, right? We have been put in this position. And that leads me to this. One of the soldiers without a sword, a great leader, a great publisher, a great spokesman, a great advocate, a person who did things his way, our dearly brother Charles William Cherry II. He left this place of wrath and tears to go on to the other side of the Jordan. And had Charles been a part of this conversation, I'm sure he would, without a shadow of a doubt, speak truth to power and call those out who sat in position and those who were not doing a damn thing to what they were supposed to be doing. So to all, rest in power, my brother Charles, and to those of us who follow, God bless you. I love you, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Tune in next week as we continue this conversation. God bless you and thank you.
God bless.